Check out my clearance item. That's right, everything must go. Feel it for yourself. You'll be wondering, why haven't I bought this already? Check out my clearance item. That's right, everything must go.
You won't be sorry.
Feel it for yourself. You'll be wondering, why haven't I bought this already?
Come to the shop, have a look around. You won't be sorry.
I just got some exclusive pieces in today, and you can be the first to own them.
Come to the shop, have a look around. You won't be sorry.
Check out my clearance item. That's right, everything must go. I just got some exclusive pieces in today, and you can be the first to own them.
Want to buy something?
Check out my clearance item. That's right, everything must go.
Want to buy something?
I just got some exclusive pieces in today, and you can be the first to own them.
Want to buy something?
Feel it for yourself. You'll be wondering, why haven't I bought this already?
Shop, have a look around. You won't be sorry.
Check out my clearance item. That's right, everything must go.
Shop, have a look around. You won't be sorry.
Feel it for yourself. You'll be wondering, why haven't I bought this already?
Shop, have a look around. You won't be sorry.
I just got some exclusive pieces in today, and you can be the first to own them.
Want to buy something?
Feel it for yourself. You'll be wondering, why haven't I bought this already?
Want to buy something?
I just got some exclusive pieces in today, and you can be the first to own them.
What you in the market for? Okie dokie. Which two are you fixing to combine? Love a good whatnot. Let me give you a voucher for him. Satisfaction guaranteed. Hey, not too shabby. Turning two sigils into one? How economical. Okie dokie. Sigil faction guaranteed. Thanks for the business. These are a fine hello to you. Now here's an offer you can't refuse. We have a wide selection of sigils. luck out there. What you in the market for? Okie dokie. Which two are you fixing to combine? Thanks for the visit. Need something?
There's something about the pure blue sky that pierces the soul. Whenever I glimpsed its light, I felt my spirits lifted upward into the resplendent glow. But when I tried to reach out and capture its brilliance, I would find myself empty-handed. I knew I was a fool for believing I could touch it, but I would give anything to be in its presence, bathed in its warmth, just once more. How I detested that radiance, a light I shunned, rejected, and despised, and above all, yearned for. Is it irrational to both loathe and cherish something? My emotions had been in disarray, driving me towards madness. But to understand what led to that incongruity, I need to start from the beginning. Fate was set in motion roughly 2,000 years ago, when the astral Lucilius created assistants to aid his research into Sky Dweller evolution. They were the original primal beasts, though they went by a different name, Archangels. Given that we primals are immortal, the role which we are bestowed becomes our sole purpose for existing. Yet, when I was created, Supreme Primarch Lucifer saw fit to grant me nothing. I was essentially a blank slate, little more than the hollow husk of a primal. With unwavering determination, I stalked the garden of the Astral Research Lab, waiting for my chance to question Lucifer. What was my purpose in life? Only he had the answer I desperately sought. With each passing moment, the whirling tempest of inferiority and doubt within my mind grew fiercer. As my disillusionment deepened, I came to view the Supreme Primarch as my only salvation. His wisdom, his skill, and even his poise. Everything about him was sublime. It was only fitting that he was beloved by all. I was convinced there was no other being as perfect as him. Indeed, he was the light that illuminated the world. And thus, I endeavored to prove that I could be of use to him. The only way I could pull my weight was to secure a role for myself. It became an obsession. I was but a tender hatchling, pestering its parent for nourishment. If only I had been more careful of what I wished for. One day, I finally learned the truth of my purpose, and it destroyed me. I wouldn't go so far to say I was eavesdropping, more like I happened to be within earshot of a conversation between Lucilius and Lucifer. From this innocuous meeting, my entire world changed forever. A spare. I was Lucifer's spare. A temporary stand-in for the Supreme Primarch, should circumstances go awry. However, when you're the definition of perfection like Lucifer, a spare becomes redundant. Not only was I born a backup, I was a useless one. My dreams were built on hope, respect, and admiration. Yet, it wasn't until everything came crashing down that I realized how flimsy that foundation had been. In one brief flash, I came to hate the light. Much time passed after that shocking revelation, though little of note occurred. Later, however, a faction of the Archangels rose up in rebellion against the Astrals. They were the fallen angels, primals who believed themselves to be at the top of the food chain, radicals who snapped at the hands of their creators. Their mission was to shake up the hierarchy. Lost in rage from being tossed aside like a broken doll, I joined the rebellion without hesitation. It was my chance to claim revenge on Lucifer and Lucilius. No, just Lucifer. But the revolt was quashed, and I, along with the fallen angels, was imprisoned in Pandemonium. I languished in that colossal cage for 2 millennia, an eternity, even for a being with all the time in the world. Yet, as chance would have it, when Vern and Lyria came in contact with each other for the first time, a deafening roar reverberated across the skies, signaling the opportunity for me to escape. Luck was on my side. But when I emerged back into the open skies, Lucifer was nowhere to be found. I wanted to be berated. I yearned to be scolded. But above all else, I needed acknowledgement. And I wouldn't rest until I got what I deserved. If I needed to light the world ablaze just to smoke him out, so be it. I destroyed the equilibrium between the tetra elements, fire, water, earth, and wind. Deprived of that delicate balance, the islands would lose buoyancy and crash into the crimson horizon below. My lips twisted into a grin as I watched the Primarchs scramble to put out my fires. Wiping out the world wasn't even that hard. I had barely broken a sweat. I shed no tears for the ruin of the skies. My focus was exhausted, suffocated by the stranglehold Lucifer kept on my heart. Darkness had conquered my judgment to the point where not even his light could mollify me. But that was what I wanted. What possessed me to commit such atrocities? Why did I lash out with such rancor? I asked rhetorically. I already knew the answers. I didn't care if I became a villain. All I cared about was proving my existence. Nothing was going to stop me. Come what may, I was going to force his hand. I chose to believe there was a method to my madness. To be punished for my crimes would validate my birth. Leaving behind a wake of destruction was my way of crying out for attention. No matter how foolish an act it was, nothing could have stopped me. There was only one way to soothe my tortured soul. All I needed was for one person to admit that I mattered, to tell me I belonged in this world. In the end, it was the captain and crew who thwarted my realm-raising intentions. My plan to sow havoc and turmoil in the skies by releasing the fallen angels from Pandemonium never stood a chance. Perhaps I should have seen my failure coming. Nothing got past Lucifer. His stringent vigil over Pandemonium prevented the sky's impending doom. He appeared before me in my time of defeat. Every pent-up emotion inside of me, excess baggage accumulated over the past 2,000 years, erupted all at once. Grief from feeling worthless, misery from being ignored, despair from everlasting rejection. Everything that had transpired was his fault. Hate me, destroy me, punish me, I begged. But Lucifer did not see fit to play my game. Instead, he accepted full responsibility for my crimes. No, it wasn't supposed to end that way. I wasn't interested in clemency. I sought to beget calamity in order to be struck down by the Supreme Primarch's own hand. Were he to forgive my transgressions, my hatred for the light over these past centuries would have been for naught. To my dismay, the punishment I desired never came. Lucifer sealed me within the gentle warmth of his core, where I succumbed to a deep sleep. I found myself in a place where time ceased to flow. It was the perfect cloister, where I had nothing but my thoughts to keep me company. Then one day, Lyria came to see me. She fought to make me see reason, drawing examples from her own life experiences. The girl spoke of grappling with personal inadequacies, She hadn't known what her purpose in life was, or even who she was. But despite those hurdles, she eventually found a place to call home. Likewise, she believed it wasn't too late for me to discover my true self. Could Lucifer and I actually come to understand one another someday? It was a tempting thought, one that caused cracks to form in my rigid facade. Perhaps I had misunderstood Lucifer all along. The stronger the light, the darker the shadow. When one is faced with such dazzling brightness, the only escape is to look away. Could it be that I was being bathed in his light all this time? The walls of my confines melted away, and I was transported to a shrine in Canaan. I could feel Lucifer's presence close by. Faint though it was, I followed his aura until I finally found him. Or at least, what was left of him. His head lay on the ground, devoid of a vessel to bear it. Despite the loss of his senses, he seemed to comprehend that someone was present.
Please. I have a message for the ears of one named Sandalphon. I leave my power and the position of Supreme Primarch to him.
Even in his dismembered state, his mind lingered on the Sky Realm. It's no wonder he irritated me so. He always did as he pleased. Consequences to others be damned. The skies! All you ever talk about is this worthless realm! I went off on a tirade, though I don't know how much of it got through to him, given his state. His last words took a turn toward the philosophical.
What makes the sky blue? For thousands of years, people have wondered. And even once they grasped the science, they continued to ask. It struck me. Perhaps a question is really just a wish. Wondering why, how, what to do. That eternal questioning, wishing, seems to be where evolution leads.
As he drew his final breath, he spoke not as the Supreme Primarch, but as himself.
If I could be granted one last wish, I'd like to share one more cup of coffee with you in that shaded garden.
My chest ached, and the yearning for the light returned. His already dim glow continued to fade. I felt his power, along with his wishes, being passed on to me. All I could do was stand there in a stupor. I peered out of the shrine and gazed at the expansive blue he loved so much. His calming light would forever shine across the skies, illuminating the path forward, an undying beacon to guide those who lost their way. Disaster never seems to sleep. Not long after I had inherited Lucifer's power, another crisis threatened the world. This time it was Lucilius who took offense to the gods, unleashing chaos to spit in their faces. His plan, or grand finale in his words, was to crash Pandemonium into the Crimson Horizon, thereby destroying the dimensional barrier. To make matters worse, the Astral had the gall to attach his head to Lucifer's stolen body. It fueled him with immense power in the form of 12 pitch-black wings on his back. It was my duty to uphold the Supreme Primarch's legacy and protect the realm. I teamed up with the captain and crew to stop Lucilius dead in his tracks. I had finally found friends I wanted to protect. The fate of an entire world rested on my shoulders. This mission was personal. It wasn't so much about keeping promises or seeking atonement, nor was it to fulfill my duty as the Supreme Primarch. I simply wished to safeguard those I held dear. By some miracle, I had become the light that could banish evil. Lyria kept a white plume with her, perhaps as a good luck charm, without knowing what it truly represented. The plume resonated with me, and from my back grew 12 great wings. 2 were my own, followed by 6 bestowed by the Supreme Primarch. The other Primarchs contributed the final 4, 1 from each respective owner. With the weight of everyone's faith borne upon my wings, we defeated Lucilius, the Sky Realm's greatest threat, once and for all. A saga spanning 2 millennia had at last come to an end. It wasn't until some days later, as I stood on the deck of the soaring Grand Cipher, that I would have the chance to reflect on the immediate aftermath of our duel with Lucilius. After the Astral's downfall, a dimensional rift opened and began pulling Lyria in. I remembered the wind roaring in my ears as I flew to rescue her. The next thing I knew, I awoke in a place without time. I seemed to have returned back to the garden at the research lab, or some sort of recreation of it at least. A figure walked up to me and reached out a hand. It was Lucifer. Was I dreaming? Was this merely an illusion? We sat in the serene garden, sipping coffee and waxing nostalgic about events that took place 20-odd centuries ago. I couldn't stop my thoughts from spilling out. There were so many things to apologize for, so much gratitude to be expressed. And that's not to mention the myriad questions I felt compelled to ask. I reiterated my commitment to act as the new Supreme Primarch. And before long, the moment of our parting had arrived. In the past, I always had to watch him leave. But now, it was his turn to see me off. I had to be strong, for his sake. It was time to bid farewell to the eternal light of my adoration. I put forth my best smile. Till next time. The Grand Cipher, its crew, and the endless blue skies. I never would have imagined myself posing for a painting against such a backdrop. But there I was, on the docks of Folca, standing beside my fellow models, Lyria, Vern, Id, and the captain. How did I get roped into this, you might be asking? Well, I can assure you I didn't volunteer. You see, it began a few days prior while I was perusing the wares of the Knick-Knack Shack. There, slightly hidden in the back, a painting had caught my eye. What drew my attention to the piece wasn't the scenic rendition of Folca, but rather the hue that stained the sky. It looked distorted. I felt compelled to ask the creator about their intentions. With Sierra Carte acting as an intermediary, the artist agreed to field my questions. In exchange, I and a select few would have to pose for a new piece. According to Id, the latest of the crew's allies, modeling was well within the bounds of a handyman's duties. But returning to the topic at hand, once the portrait session concluded, I asked her to elaborate on the meaning behind her choice of colors.
Well, I'm not sure if I can explain it without sounding insane. Every time I look at the skies these days, it sort of feels blue? Like in the figurative sense, I mean.
In other words, she saw deterioration in the sky's health.
I don't know. I'm probably the only one who sees it that way. Maybe it's all in my head, but something doesn't sit right with me.
Such sharp perception. Perhaps this is what sky dwellers call artists' intuition. If the health of the sky is in actual decline, an examination of the wind element may help us locate any symptoms. Even the tiniest, most imperceptible change can balloon to catastrophic proportions. At worst, it could lead to the complete destabilization of the Tetra elements. To ignore warning signs, no matter how trifling, was a recipe for disaster.
Wind element. Wind element. Oh, Furican might know something. Let me ask.
Lyria closed her eyes and beseeched the primal to appear. We waited, to no avail.
Huh? That's weird. Furican isn't responding to me.
According to Lyria, she'd spoken to the primal as little as a few days ago. Given the primal's newfound silence, it did seem as if something was wrong.
I don't like where this is going. I think this calls for a trip to the old mines.
The captain nodded in agreement.
As far as I'm aware, Tempeal's recovery has been trouble-free. Let's hope this is just a fluke.
The only way to know for certain was to see it for ourselves. We quickly boarded the Grand Cipher and departed for Tempeal to hunt for clues. Peace had barely returned to Zega Grande Skydom, and now chaos was already brewing once more. The knots in my stomach grew tighter by the minute.
I'm not seeing anything out of the ordinary, to be honest with you.
The self-proclaimed handyman known as Roland had joined our investigation of Halewind Altar. Astral though he may be, he was a close ally of the crew. As a long-time denizen of Zega Grande, his knowledge of the Skydom was second to none. To think there existed an Astral who had laid his life on the line for the good of the realm. It was difficult to reconcile Roland's personality with my own biases, especially having witnessed Lucilius's sinister deeds.
Wait, there's something close by.
Allow me to amplify your energy, Lyria. Now, can you try calling Furican again?
Sure. Here goes.
Once again, the primal of vitality failed to appear. It's becoming clear that the wind element is acting abnormally. It's more pronounced here than in Fulka. Ever since the 4 Primarchs relinquished their oversight of the Tetra elements to nature, I've been able to utilize my Supreme Primarch powers to feel elemental currents. Yet I also sensed a faint foreign dissonance, one which was different from the irregularity in the wind element. Whatever it was, it seemed to be flowing towards a singular point elsewhere in the Skydom.
Hang on. I finally got through to Furican. But something's not right.
A chill washed over my body, though it came and went in a flash. Judging from the look of panic on Lyria's face, the situation had taken a turn for the worse.
I was hoping I was wrong, but this aura can only mean one thing. Oh no, not this icky pressure again. I can't believe it's back.
That can't be. I thought we...
Here it comes!
A turbulent gale nearly launched us off our feet. Squinting through the howling wind, I saw the unmistakable silhouette of a primal beast rearing up on its hind legs. It appeared force was our only option. You give us no choice. We shall make you see reason.
Hate to say it, Angra Mind is still pulling through at bad rains.
I'm so sorry, Furican. I even asked you to beat Angra Mind.
Into the light!
Here it comes!
Focus on evasion.
Everyone, come to me! Ward of Light, come forward!
Watch my back!
Great job, Lyria! Furikin is changing its form. They have new tricks up its sleeve.
No escape!
Be ready for anything!
Finally shows its true face. Very well. Then I won't hold back either.
Keep moving!
Lead down!
Okay, Lyria. Your turn.
Got it! I'm sorry for what you had to suffer through, Furikin, but everything's all right now.
Lyria's calming words soothed the primal. Now that Furikin was freed from its shackles, it dissipated quietly into the air, as did the projection of Angra Mainyu. We could only hope that we had seen the last of Furikin's fitful outbursts.
Lilith, you still haven't loosened your grip on this skydom, have you?
The infamous Angra Mainyu was not what I had expected. Hearing about it was one thing. Being in its unsettling presence was something else entirely.
I still don't get it, though. Why'd old Gusty wait until now to start kicking up a storm? I mean, Furikin could have caused some serious damage already if it really wanted to.
I have my guesses. You see, during my old research days, we Astrals delved into the concept of emotional intelligence.
The primal beasts of Zega Grande formed pacts with the islands to serve as their guardians. It had been Roland who convinced the masses to worship these primals as primeval gods. Instilled with the people's faith, the primal's influence over the environment expanded significantly. Obvious treachery was responsible for Tempeal's misfortunes, resulting in a loss of faith in Furikin. As that confidence waned, it was only a matter of time before the primal beast went berserk.
With that being said, this change is too rapid. Furikin is consuming too much power.
Having lived in Zega Grande for so long, Roland knew an irregularity when he saw one. All we could posit for certain was that the stagnating faith in Furikin was weakening the wind element. Was it simply a case of lost confidence? I had a nagging suspicion there was more to the puzzle.
So if we don't restore that faith, things won't go back to the way they were.
Yes, that is the natural conclusion. I'm afraid swaying hearts will be easier said than done considering the damage Furikin has caused. But as they say, time heals all wounds.
Such optimism. Though his reasoning had merit, I did not believe we could leave fate in the hands of an old adage alone. May I interject?
What's wrong? You sound kinda serious.
As far as Zega Grande is concerned, Furikin is the next closest thing to the wind element itself. If Furikin's power drops, the wind element would consequently weaken. I needed to hammer home just how pressing this issue was. We find ourselves in a predicament where Zega Grande's islands are destined to fall out of the sky.
Wait, what?
You'd better start talking.
Gladly. However, the problem at hand requires a brief history lesson. And so, I recounted how the islands of Fanta Grande nearly fell into the Crimson Horizon. All because I had disrupted the equilibrium of the Tetra elements. Fire, water, earth, and wind. Island buoyancy is predicated on the delicate balance between those four. I was convinced this loss of buoyancy had made its way to Zega Grande, though I couldn't place the origin of the dissonance I felt. It was too faint and hard to trace, like trying to detect a grain of sand in the sea. The process could take as long as a century or as little as a year. Either way, it had begun. The clock was ticking.
A collapse of the balance between elements. Interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
So, just because the Islanders don't believe in Furikin anymore, the wind is weakening, and someday the island will drop out of the sky?
more or less.
I can't sense the elements at all. How are we to rectify something we can't detect?
Maintaining the balance was paramount. A single loose thread could cause everything to rip at the seams. Restoring faith in the primal beasts, who represent their respective elements, should, in theory, stabilize the equilibrium. I presented my idea to Roland, and he agreed.
You make a sound point. Right then. Leave it to Mr. Fix-It. My experience with mending relationships shall not go to waste. I'll have a talk with everyone in Einstedo.
Roland had the trust of the townspeople, so the wind element was in capable hands. That left 3 elements unaccounted for.
Well, guess it's up to us to handle the rest. It'll be fun taking another tour of Zega Grande.
It always seems like we're heaping more and more troubles on your plate. I hope you don't mind.
Not at all. We'll make you proud.
You know what to do, Id. Let's show everyone what happens when Team Handyman steps up to the plate.
I'm on it.
With a strategy in place, we set off for the next island. A daunting task rested on our shoulders. We needed to rebuild the people's trust and faith. But I believed in the potential of Sky Dwellers, and I was finally a light who could guide them. I think I'm onto something. Pure steel requires steady maintenance. My blade grows ever sharper. May this sword receive your blessing. Pure steel requires steady maintenance. Excellent. Good. Interesting. Well, well. Nice. I wasn't aware I could get stronger. Excellent. Well, well. Nice. Good. Interesting. Excellent. Good. Well, well. Interesting. Nice. Excellent. Interesting. Well, well. Nice. Good. Well, well. Nice. The might of the Supreme Primarch. The elements are reacting. An impressive result. The elements are reacting.
Nate, which will it be?
Our homes, our livelihoods, it's all gone. Gone!
We paid a visit to an old monastery on Lotania Island. Rather than a warm welcome, we were greeted by a man stricken with grief. Try as I might, my questioning was met only with lament.
It is a pleasure to see you all again. Though I am loath to admit we cannot offer much in the way of hospitality at the moment.
Historiath, a woman who had played a vital role in bringing down Angra Mainyu, bowed to us with solemn grace.
You chose an inopportune time to visit. a section of permasnow inconceivably thawed, resulting in horrific flooding. We have our hands full with the evacuation efforts.
That explained the flock of distraught individuals milling about. Historiath and her attendants from Melot's monastery had done a remarkable job preventing casualties. The dramatic climate shift is certainly to blame for the unexpected thaw. However, the root cause was surely tied to a deviation of the water element. But there were more important things to worry about. For now, I brushed it aside in favor of helping the islanders.
This news doesn't appear to faze you. Is there perhaps something I should know?
I explained how faith in the primeval gods was connected to the state of the elements. The overseer closed her eyes, as if weighing the options available to her.
Does this mean we'll have to fight Panagarmer?
That is ultimately not up to me. I would rather use force as a last resort, even though it seemed inevitable. Furikin's frenzied outburst could have been the exception, but perhaps that was just wishful thinking. These people were reaching their breaking points. To assault a god, a being meant to be revered, seemed counterproductive considering the state of morale.
Given that our esteemed primeval god governs sequestration, resealing it behind the doors of Tradam's sanctum may return some semblance of faith.
That could, in a manner of speaking, reset the island to its original state. A primeval god locked behind a door would elevate the divine being's mystique, thereby inspiring reverence amongst its worshippers. It was worth a try. Couldn't be any worse than allowing the climate shift to ravage the island.
O primeval god of Felfrost's dominion, by your grace, shut the gate of seclusion!
The sanctum doors shuddered and drew to a close. As they clicked shut, a wolf-like howl echoed from within the inner chambers. The evacuees raised their heads, soaking in the sonorous timbre with sighs of relief. To my surprise, the snowfall grew slightly heavier. I hadn't expected such a quick turnaround.
It seems Managarmer's divinity thrives when placed in seclusion.
The clouds over Lotanya grew thicker and banished the sun's rays from its domain. Soon, the sacred mountain was back in the loving embrace of ice and frost. If the brutal cold is what its tenants cried out for, then who was I to judge?
Whenever I need inspiration to formulate a harebrained scheme, I just plunk myself down in front of this empty litter box and the ideas start flowing.
Zothba chuckled as we stared out at the ruins of Valian. The crew hid in the shade of a monolithic rock formation to avoid melting in the mid-afternoon sun. Even so, the heat was palpable to my more mortal companions.
Ugh. Now I know what a fried egg feels like.
This island, like the previous two we'd come from, showed signs of irregularity. Desertification was accelerating, possibly spurred by an erratic earth element. I sensed the same lingering dissonance here, yet failed again to identify it. How irritating.
While we're holed up here trying to beat the heat, let me tell you a tale from Dolly's history.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Not so fast, Buster. What's this info gonna cost us?
Ha! Spoken like a true info broker. Ah, they grow up so fast. Anyway, we're pals now, aren't we? Not everything I do has an ulterior motive, you know.
I think that was the first time I'd seen Zothba smile since our introductions. He went on to explain that this entire region was occupied by an immense structure known as Holy City Valian, otherwise known as the primal beast Excavalian, and it was home to many a sky dweller. They were protected by the primal's power of fortification, and some say even astrals walked among them. Excavalion blessed the desert, harsh as it was. Every day the islanders gathered on a hill beneath the stars to offer up their prayers. It was hard to imagine this now barren land once teemed with activity.
Those prayers must have been what fueled that emotion mumbo-jumbo Roland was going on about. Excavalion stored up quite a bit of goodwill back in the day.
That changed when Roland sealed away Excavalion during the war, causing the islanders to seek prosperity elsewhere. They uprooted their families and took their faith in Excavalion with them. The final nail in the coffin was hammered in by the Church of Avia 15 years ago, when the Dali catastrophe wiped out any remaining souls. Even if such a disaster hadn't transpired, faith in Excavalion had hit its peak nearly 500 years earlier. How would it be possible to replicate those heights once more? Let's see what we have to work with. For one, there was sand. Lots of sand. As far as the eye could see. It was going to take a monumental, maybe even asinine, idea to repopulate this desolate island.
Huh. What? You think I sit behind a big desk just to stroke my ego? Point your peepers over there. Tell me if you spot the seeds of a burgeoning oasis.
I squinted at the dune Zothba was pointing to. A figure crested its peak, looking like a tree growing out of the sand. Another one sprouted, and then another, and soon an entire forest had emerged from the beige sea.
Ladies and gentlemen, who's got what it takes to be a millionaire? There's treasure everywhere you look, but only the quickest get stinking rich. Finders keepers, losers weepers. Are you ready? Get set, go!
On the spunky Harvin's signal, the crowd dispersed in all directions as if their lives depended on it.
We already picked the place clean of the good stuff, but they don't have to know that. Nothing mobilizes people better than get-rich-quick schemes. Besides, there's no rule against converting greed into faith, right?
So this was the man's grand design, a treasure-hunting venture. If word of riches reached gullible ears, a base of operations could easily grow into a true village.
Our cut is 30%. Don't worry. We already hammered out a deal with Seed Hollow. Pretty good side hustle, if you ask me.
Regardless of wealth's powerful allure, success was not guaranteed, nor would it come on such short notice. Still, it was a plan at least. We would have to wait until enough people settled on Dali before determining the next step.
Yo, boss, I did it! My sales numbers are through the roof! That means I got that bonus on lockdown, right? Right?
Since when have I ever gone back on my word? Don't go spending it all in one place. And be sure to thank the primeval god. You hear?
I love ya, Excavalion! I'll buy a round in your honor.
Sometimes to get results, one needs to be unconventional, especially if it speeds the process along. This gambit just may prove to be more successful than anticipated. Zothba the information broker. He could give the Archangel of Cunning a run for his money.